Hello everyone, welcome to Java Tutorials. My name is Kishore. In this video, we will discuss about how to create a class and an object. In our previous video, we discussed what is a class and an object. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Java project with the name called Object Oriented Programming System Examples. I will click on Finish, and this Object Oriented Programming System Examples I am using now. Let me right click on it and create one class with the name called customer. But we need to name the package here. Let me name it as com.examples. And this customer class will not have a main method because we are going to use this customer class and create an object in another class. So I am not selecting the main method. I will click on finish. Let us create few properties in this customer class because a customer is going to have properties and behaviors. So properties are represented as variables and behaviors are represented as methods where you are going to write the logics. Let me create few variables like int customer ID, then string name, and lastly, one more variable called phone number. I am just creating three variables here. Then I will be creating only one method inside the customer class, which is going to print the customer ID, name, and phone number. So to create the method, we need to use this syntax where we are going to have a return type. Let me use void as the return type. And then the method name display is going to print the customer informations. The display method should have a system.out.println statement which is going to print the customer ID, name, and phone number. So what I will do is I will write here ID equals customer ID, name equals name, then phone number equals phone number. Notice I am using the variables inside the display method because display method belongs to customer class. It can use the members of the customer class. And we are not still having the value to these customer ID, name, and phone number because we are going to get the values for these variables once we create the object. To create the object, I am going to create a new class. Let me go to the same project, oops examples, and in the same package, I will create one new class with the name called test customer. This time, I will be selecting the main method because that is the entry point and also it is going to create the customer object. So how to create the object? The syntax is like this: type variable equals new keyword and then the class name, like this. Just like how you created primitive variables, you have to create the variables for classes also. Classes are non-primitive data types, are also called as derived data types. To create the customer object, we should use the customer class name. Then I will use the variable name as customer1 equals new keyword, then class name customer followed by the parenthesis. What is this new keyword going to do is it is going to allocate a new memory to store the customer object, and this statement is actually called as a constructor, which we are going to discuss in detail soon. What is a constructor? But if you want to create an object, you have to first create a variable of that class type, followed by the new keyword and the constructor to initialize the object. Let me create one more customer object using the same syntax, but I will give the variable name as customer2. Then again, I will write new customer. What happens here is once you use new keyword, a memory is allocated for the customer object, and automatically this particular statement initialize the properties of the customer class. In the customer class, what are the properties we have? We have customer ID, name, and phone number. So how does these properties will be initialized is the customer ID will have the default value 0, then name will have a default value null, phone number will have a default value 0. Why 0? Because it is int. The default value for int is 0. Even for phone number also it will be 0 because it is long and the default value for long is 0. But for name, it is actually of string type, which is a derived data type. For derived data types, the default value is going to be null. By default, all the derived data types will have null if in case explicitly the derived type is not initialized. Same thing goes for the second customer also. So there are two customer objects and each customer will have their own customer ID, name and phone number. Customer class has one method called display method. To call this display method, we can use the reference variable of this customer. So we will use customer1 dot display. We can also call the display from customer2 because customer2 is also a reference variable for customer object. What display does is display method is printing customer ID, name and phone number. But it all depends you are invoking display method on which particular reference variable or on which particular object. When you invoke the display method will be called on the reference. It means it is going to print customer ID, customer name, and customer phone number of customer one object, which are 0. If I invoke the display on customer 2, it is also going to print the same values because customer ID, name, and phone number of customer 2 is also having these default values. Let's run this program and see what is the output. You can observe they are printing the same values. What we need to do is we need to initialize these properties. For that, what we can do is we can write here customer1 dot customer ID equals to some number. Let us give 1234. Then customer1 dot name equals to Alex and customer1 dot phone number equals 8899008899 capital L. We will also initialize customer2 dot customer ID equals 6789, then customer2 dot name equals to Bruce, then customer2 dot phone number equals 9999554433 capital L. Now what happens is at this point of time the customer 2 will completely have all the variables initialized. So customer ID is going to be 6789, then name will be Bruce, phone number is going to be the number which you have provided here. For this particular customer object, the customer ID is going to be 1234, name is going to be Alex, and phone number is going to be this number. So it means Whenever I invoke the display method on customer 1, the display method is going to print the customer ID, name and phone number of customer 1. And this time, the values are not going to be the default values. The values are going to be this for customer 1, and this is what going to be the value for customer 2. Let's run this program and see what is the output. You can observe when I invoke the display, customer 1 display is printing customer 1 details. Customer 2 dot display is printing customer 2 details. But what you have to observe here is each time you create an object, you have to initialize the properties of the object. If I create another object, once again I need to initialize that new object's property. So it means for every object creation, you are going to write three extra lines because there are three properties that needs to be initialized. How to avoid that? That we will see in our next video.